Hello everyone, a very warm welcome to this webinar on fastest growing ethical hacking market in India. So here I'm Shruti Gupta, the host of the day, and I have been in cybersecurity for quite a long time. To introduce myself a bit more, I have been working with EC Council with variety of courses for quite a long time, more than 5 years now. I take variety of security related courses like certified ethical hacking, computer hacking and forensic investigation, EC Council certified security analyst, EC Council certified security specialist, EC Council certified encryption specialist, incident handling, network defense, certified chief information security officer, and so on. So I have been here for a while, and I have also worked previously in different companies, precisely for our security. I have worked with the Defense Research and Development Organization of India, and I have also worked in the Indian Meteorological Department. So this is about me. Now, today, I believe we are all here to understand that why and how India has become one of the highest power in terms of ethical hacking market and how it is increasing every day and the future also seems absolutely bright. So let's go ahead and get started. So let's get started with the idea of how IT people are a very, very important part of our working. So in this age today, with the advent of Corona, so we know health doctors and nurses and pharmacists, all the health officials basically has become extremely important. They have really done a great job. But another thing that has not really been that much focused is the IT people. Now companies are going digital. The moment they are going digital, they need IT people there to keep everyone connected. And we all as IT people are working 24/7 every day so that we can ensure that connectivity. Like right now, we are having this webinar again. IT comes into picture, so that is why IT people has always been a very important part. And amidst this Corona pandemic, it has become even more important. Think of it without that, neither banking, no trading, not even properly hospitals or ATMs, any of them will not work. So that is why a very, very big thank you to all the IT people out there and all the people who are going to join IT. It's very, very fortunate for all of us to be here. So again, a very big thank you to all the IT. Now, when we talk about IT, we talk about cyber security. Now, cyber security has become an integral, essential, extremely important part of IT. Because when we are utilizing IT, when we are utilizing the technologies and services, so as to communicate, so as to send and receive money, so as to send and receive data, so as to do so many things. So it is very important that there is no attacks, no harm, no changes in that particular data. It is very important that all these transfer, all these communication happens in a way that we do not have to worry about any kind of misappropriation, any kind of attack, any kind of issue in the particular devices. So that is why this comes into picture. Right. So now let's go ahead. If I talk about cyber security, we say that in cybersecurity, we talk about three major components: confidentiality, integrity, availability. So these three are the pillars of security. So confidentiality refers to the idea that no unauthorized personnel should be able to see or view the data. No unauthorized entity should be able to misuse any communication factors. Right. That is the idea of confidentiality. So obviously, we do not want any third person getting my confidential secrets, my company policies and details. That is why confidentiality comes into picture. Most commonly, We use methodologies like encryption, we use methodologies like access control mechanisms, classification of data, and so on to ensure confidentiality. Then we come to integrity. Integrity refers to the idea that there should not be any unauthorized changes in the data. There should not be any modifications or alterations to the data while it is being sent specially from one party to another. So that is why integrity becomes very important. There are multiple ways to provide that also. But some of the most common ways would be hashing. Hashing is one of the most powerful technique to identify integrity problems. Similarly, access control mechanisms and classifications also indirectly help us with integrity. And finally, we have availability. Availability is another extremely important concept which is often overlooked. Think of it, what is the use of everything else if we cannot access the data? If the data is not available to us, if the data is not accessible or useful to us. So that is why availability ensures that there is no unauthorized destruction of data or there is no unauthorized denial of service to the data. The authorized people should be able to access the information at all authorized point of. There are multiple ways to provide availability as well. Most commonly, we use redundancy, backup, spare parts, business continuity planning, disaster recovery planning, fault tolerance mechanisms, system resilience mechanisms, and so on to ensure availability in our systems. These three components, CIA, confidentiality, integrity, availability, is very popularly known as the CIA triad as well, which actually are considered the pillars to cybersecurity. They are the elements or goals of information security. If we are able to provide a relative amount of CIA, we say a good amount of security has been ensured. So this is a brief idea of cybersecurity. Now, when I talk about hacking, hacking is a very, very popular term, and whenever we come across the term hacking, the major thing that comes into mind are the attacks that keep happening. You see the news every day, we come across some kind of cybercrime or the other. Recently, a smartwatch company was hacked. Another, some few days ago, a big attack happened on a lot of different companies. I'm not taking any names right now, but yes, there are a lot of companies that have been recently hacked. And I continue, every day we continue to get some news. And this is when a lot of companies do not even disclose that some kind of issue has happened. So this is only the disclosures we're talking about. So this brings us to hacking, where hacking refers to the idea of utilizing various techniques, tools, and tricks in order to be able to exploit the various weaknesses in the system, the various vulnerabilities in the system, identify them, exploit them, and misuse them. Now, when I talk about ethical hacking, so ethical hacking is done by a security analyst or a good guy basically who performs all the hacking methodologies to be able to find out that if a real hacker does this, what all he can find. And thus, all those weaknesses can be reported by the ethical hacker to the company for which he has been hired, and the company can accordingly take recommendations from him as to how to make the situation better, as to how to patch up those vulnerabilities, as to how to ensure that a real hacker will not be able to misuse them. So, ethical hacking comes to that ethical practice, that moral practice, which help us ensure actually a decent amount. I would not say 100% because security can never be 100%, but a decent amount of security, the required amount of security for our ASICs. Now, ethical hacking can be applied to various amount of targets, various kind and types of targets. Some of the examples are shown here. For example, web application hacking. We all know that almost every organization has some kind of an application in use, with the help of which they interact with their customers, they interact with their partners, vendors, and so on. That is one of the most common medium for interaction. Any external entity a particular company wants to interact with, the application is one of the very good methods. So, since it is very good method to interact with external entities, it is a very common point of attack where hacker, being an external entity, can also try entering the company systems. So, web application hacking is a very common issue. Then system hacking comes into picture. So a company has so many different kinds of systems. Trying to hack them would be another very common issue. Similarly, web server hacking. The web servers are the ones which are hosting the web application. So web server are again in direct interaction with external entities, and they could also be one of the most common sources of attack. Then wireless network. Now everywhere you go, whether you go into a public place or companies or hotels, you always find a Wi-Fi network there. And nowadays they have wearable devices and so we have Bluetooth and we have NFC and so many different kinds of wireless networks. And since these are so prevalent and relatively easier to connect with, that is why they become a very common source of attack also. That is why hacking wireless network is also very important. And then we come to social engineering. This has always been there, but recently people are starting to realize this is a very important thing because this is that particular kind of attack which uses humans as a target. We say humans are the weakest link of the security chain. You do anything, you will always find that somewhere or the other humans are responsible for all these issues, whatever issues happen. So that is why I talk about humans being very important sources here, and thus a lot of attack can happen by taking advantage of the emotional nature of humans, or fearful nature of humans, or trusting nature of humans. So all that comes into picture. So these are some of the most common ways that ethical hacking can happen. Now, we talk about types of hackers. Now, there can be a variety of ways to classify hackers. This is just one of the ways. So, we can classify hackers into three major categories: white hat hacker, black hat hacker, and grey hat. White hat hacker is the good guy, is the ethical hacker, or the security analyst. He is very knowledgeable. So we say any hacker is supposed to be very knowledgeable, very good expert in technology, must have all information, ideally must have all information about all networking, platforms, hardware, software, and so on. And in real life, we say the hacker must be very intelligent and he must be a quick learner. Whatever new he finds at his target, he can quickly learn. So white hat hacker is the one with all that knowledge, all that experience, all that expertise, and hence he applies this expertise in order to help the organization to identify the issues, identify the problems, and thus accordingly make sure that we can patch those problems, we can provide a solution. Then we have black hat hackers who are also called as the crackers. They are the one with an offensive purpose in mind, with a bad purpose in mind, and they are the one who performs the full hacking procedure with the intention that they want to either maybe get some money out of it or get some information or get some kind of revenge. They have some malicious motive and accordingly they perform the hacking techniques. And finally, we have grey hat hacker. As the name itself suggests, it's a combination. So these are people with all kinds of knowledge and they can apply it in either way. So if a vendor hires a grey hat hacker that please secure my product, he can do that also. And if a company hires the grey hat hacker to attack another company, he can do that also. So he can apply his immense amount of knowledge in both ways. This is the grey hat hacker. These are the three most common categories of hackers that you can find. So this was an introduction. Now I'll talk about recently you'll find that SC Magazine, which is one of the most popular sources of information for all kinds of security details, has recently published a very good article based on a report by Buck Rao. The report is called as Inside the Mind of a Hacker. So here are some statistics from those here in a few coming slides that will help us understand that how India has started leading. So how the I would say field of hacking has been transforming nowadays and how India becomes a very common source for that. So let's have a look. So you can see here we talk about the geographical distribution of hackers and of hacking. So some time ago we had USA as the highest, that is 79%, followed by South Korea 9%, Australia 3%, and UK also 3%, and finally Sweden, that is 1%. Okay, and now if you see the present scenario, you can clearly see that India, that is got 34%, that is the highest throughout. And then we have USA, that is 26%, Canada, that is 7%, and Germany, that is 6%, and finally UK, that is 5%. And here we're talking about only top five. I'm sure there are more countries, but here we're talking about the top five. As you can see, here we come across these, and these are very well working. So this is about that how the geographical distribution has been changing over time, and this takes to the picture that how very nicely they have been able to see a shift in the market of hacking and how India is right now in the lead. So this is again a very good way of seeing that how India has growing and growing every day in the hacking market. Now, here you can see the employment status and the income. So hackers, you'll find there is actually a dearth of security experts and hackers right now. And this dearth actually is due to not so much talent, or I would say not so much trained personnel available. So here are some statistics which show how much we require them and how much employment is currently, and how much possible income generation can be done with the help of this. How much money is basically in this particular market. So we can see all of this here. So here we talk about the employment status of hackers. So you can see we have 36% elite hackers that are hacking full time at the moment. And then we can also see that we have 18% which are regulars, which are hacking full time, and 14% are newcomers also. You can see newcomers are also increasing immensely, and newcomers are there, which are 14% newcomers are also there, which are hacking full time. So that is a great idea that clearly shows that how hackers are increasing. Then we have, trying to hack full-time people. So you can see we have 37% regulars and newcomers who are trying every day to ensure that we can make sure to find out that we have happened there. And then we have 27% elite people also who are trying to find more and more time in hacking and trying to do it full time. Definitely not able to do at the moment, but they are trying. And then we have the part-time hackers. We can see 49% newcomers are actually part-time hackers. And if I talk about the elite, they are 37%. And if I talk about regulars, they are also quite a good. That is 45%. So we still have a lot of people who are doing this part-time and would really go ahead and would want to do it full-time as well if they had the right details. So this is about how the people are really wanting to be into this particular field, and if they get a chance, they may do a very good job of it, and they are trying to do it full time. So now if we talk about income of hackers, you will find that we talk about that right now, as I said, there's a little dearth of this particular kind of expertise and knowledge. So right now, 64% of hackers are earning around $25,000, right? Which is not really a bad sum, but at the same time, we can grow. If we grow our expertise, we can grow because you can see there's a lot of market. Only 21% people are right now in the 25,000 to 75,000 range, and we have 5% people in the 75,000 to $100,000 range, 4% at $100,000 to $125,000, and $125,000 to $200,000 is again 4%, and above 200,000 is only 1%. That is all because of a dearth of the amount of people with the right expertise that we have. So if we can increase the expertise, if we can become more practiced into it, if we can learn more about these technologies, we can have more people out there at the higher income levels, and that will be definitely very good for all of us. Then, if you talk about it further, you will find out that is sort of ethnic diversity. So, India is part of Asia. So, Asia, you can see clearly has the highest amount. 46% of hackers are from the Asian or Pacific Islander community. Then we have 24% Caucasians, 19% others, 5% Native American, 3% Hispanic, and African American. So this clearly shows that Asia has clearly increased in the amount of hackers, and we suspect, as per the statistics, that they are going to increase even more. Then talk about average age of hackers. So you can see the young adult generation of our particular population. That is 53% of the hackers are 18 to 24 years in age, and again a young adult population. Then 32% are 25 to 34. That is then the next set of age group. Then we have 9% 35 to 44 years of age, 4% which are 18 years of less than 18 years of age, but very young, even those are trying to be into it, and 45% and 2% which are more than 45 years of age. So we can just clearly shows that the current adult generation has a lot of interest in hacking, and with the right expertise, with the right amount of time, with the right amount of growth, they can do wonders in this field. And that is exactly what the companies also require. Now, if you see the male female demographic ratio, so you can see right now the female is quite less. We are 94% male and 6% female. And as a female myself, it's really proud that we do have females in this field, but there is a lot of potential. There's a lot of females out there who has the mind, who can actually go into it, and it will be great to have more females in. So that is where a huge amount of, I would say, chance is there for females to prove themselves. Because obviously, males and females, they are both equal. Nobody is higher, nobody is less. Right. Now we talk about some general, I would say, goals or reasons why people do hack. So you'll find out most of them are doing with some kind of good intention only, with a very positive and with very social intention. So you can see here, as per the statistics given by Buckround, 93% of the people perform hacking techniques so far considering the well-being of others. Because we want to make sure that others can properly utilize all their technologies and IT systems properly. Then you can see 61% of them do it for personal development so that they can ensure that their expertise grows by proper practicing. That is again a very important criteria. Unless you develop yourself, you cannot really help others also. Then 19% are doing it for money. You can see there is a huge chance here. There's a huge possibility here to have a lot of money. So definitely money would be a very important criteria. And 12% are doing it for fun also. So hacking and cybersecurity is actually a very interesting field. A lot of people just do it because they find it so interesting. Because no two systems are same, no two cases are same. So it is so interesting finding out what can be done there, what has been happened there, and thus try to help others as well. So that is what is interesting. It has the money also, as well as it is helpful for everybody and the society. So that is how hacking becomes a very essential and very useful skill in the market.
So now here in this slide, you can see that here they Buckrout people, what did they do is they ask people that what do you think a hacker looks like? So you can see on the top we have the results of what the people who are not hackers themselves, what they thought. So you can see here 71% of the people thought that hackers look like these. So this is also kind of picture that most people have in their mind. If you see some films, etc., also you will find a similar picture is painted where if you see a hacker, he'll be like in a black room with a black screen, with a hood on his head, and with some green typing he's doing. So this is how it is picturized. But actually, if you see that what hackers think they look like, this is the 40% people thought this way. So this is actually people like you and me who can have all the knowledge that is required, who can learn every day and can perform all the hacking technologies and get to help the companies as well. So this is the kind of difference between what it is assumed and what actually it is. It is not that difficult actually. Once you start learning, it is a very interesting field and it will just grow on. Now we talk about some trends that has this is a particular set of trends that were identified by cybersecurity ventures, and this was published in the Forbes magazine. This is also very recent, which talks about that how there is a lot of employment opportunities in the hacking field and the cybersecurity field as well. So you can see there are 3.5 million unfilled cybersecurity jobs that are expected by 2021, and it was that only 1 million were filled in 2014. So you can see the gap. There is so much cybersecurity jobs available, but we do not have the right people. The unemployment rate was 0% in 2019 and has been for last 8 years the same way, has been the same way in 2020, and is expected to grow the same, to be the same in the future as well. So we totally expect a 0% unemployment rate to go for a good amount of time. That means a presence of lot of job opportunities here. Then cybersecurity engineers. So we have $140,000 per year is the average highest paying income here. So we have already seen some medium incomes also. Here also it talks about 2019 in specific, and it continues to grow. And then India, if we talk about India alone needs 1 million cybersecurity professionals today. So think of it, if India alone needs these many, how much the world needs. And India definitely we have great market. So that is why this clearly shows that how unemployment is a big issue in this market, and how people, when we have the right expertise, they can do wonders in cybersecurity. Then here are some recent examples. So here you can see these are some recent examples which shows that how with their expertise some people, especially from India, has done a great job in hacking and hence receive wonderful amazing rewards. So you can see on the left we have this person from Kanpur. He has actually found out a bug in Google tracking, and thus he has won, or he has earned 3.78 lakh rupees. You can see not a small amount actually, right? And then on the right you can see that Facebook was, we all know Facebook. So there was a guy called as Jitia. He has found a bug in Facebook, and hence Facebook has rewarded him with 23.8 lakh rupees. So not again a small amount, even bigger amount. So depending on your talent, you can really utilize it, and companies are aware that how I would say there is how much possibility of the talent and how much less of it is there, how much dearth it is there, and they are also rewarding it accordingly so that you are encouraged to find out more things. So that is why these are some wonderful ways, some wonderful examples to see the importance of this thing. Now we talk about some of the coolest jobs in security. Right. So when we talk about some of the coolest jobs in security, we can see here, we start with digital forensics. So digital forensics is a very popular job where we try to find out after an issue has happened. We are trying to find out how this happened and why this happened, who was responsible for this. This comes in here. It is one of the coolest job you can have and has great value in the market. Then we have penetration testing. So penetration testing is again one of the most popular jobs, one of the coolest jobs, where you tend to apply the full hacking methodology and find out what all vulnerabilities and issues are there and report it to the organization. Same goes for application pen tester. Here also we do pen testing, but for web applications. As we have seen, web applications is a very important field. Then we have SOC analysts, which can take care of the security operations center, which ensures that all the IT assets in the organization are working smoothly. Then we have cyber defender, that is the security engineer, which ensures that proper security, proper defense is applied in various points in the organization. A proper security posture is maintained in the organization. Then we have incident responder, which deals with whenever an issue comes up, how do we deal with it. Then we have security architect, who actually verifies the details. A security architect is the one who ensures the proper security is applied at different points of time. Then we have the security software development manager, who will ensure that whenever we are creating a product, when a product is developed, proper security is applied at each phase of that. That is nowadays called as secure software development lifecycle or secure system development lifecycle. Then we have malware analyst and reverse engineer. We know malwares are the most common kinds of attack that is happening nowadays. So these are the people who will try to understand what kind of malware has been installed and try to identify the issues and the working of it, thus helping us with security. And finally, we have the technical director or CISO, which is one of the highest top management or senior management positions, which ensures that proper security is maintained throughout in every process in the organization and helps ensures proper and smooth functioning of organization. So these are some of the coolest jobs that we have in cybersecurity. So talking about the cool jobs, now we talk about EC Council. EC Council is one of the most popular international organizations, especially when we talk about cybersecurity. EC Council find is become very, very popular, and we are very, very honored for the same. Here you can see that we talk about all our accreditations from variety of trusted sources. So here, when we talk about these accreditations, you will find, first of all, we have NIES, National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education, which is actually basically a partnership between government, academia, and private sector. So EC Council has been honored because we have achieved their accreditation for our courses like Certified Ethical Hacking, Certified Chief Information Security Officer, Certified Network Defender, and Computer Hacking and Forensic and Investigation. Similarly, we have ANSI, also American National Standard Institute, which is a private non-profit organization that looks at the development for voluntary consensus standards for various products, services, processes, systems, and so on in the United States. So we have a very honorable accreditation with them also. Then we have the CNSS, that is Community on National Security Systems. It is again a US intergovernmental organization that sets policy for security of US security systems. So EC Council has been honored. Our courses like Certified Ethical Hacking, Computer Hacking Forensic Investigator, Disaster Recovery Professional, Certified Security Analyst, Licensed Penetration Tester has been honored and given equivalent status to some of their courses as well. Then we have United States Department of Veteran Affairs, and here it is actually a federal cabinet level agency that provides healthcare services, especially to the military veterans. So EC Council has got a great accreditation for courses like Certified Ethical Hacking, Computer Hacking Forensic Investigation, and EC Council Security Analysts with them as well. And then we have United States Department of Defense, which is the executive branch department of the federal government, which is in charge of coordinating and supervising all agencies and functions of the government there. So our courses like Certified Ethical Hacker, Computer Hacking and Forensic Investigation, Certified Chief Information Security Officer are also integrated with their baseline skill certification. Then we have National Infocom Competency Framework, that is actually a part of the WSQ system. It was developed as a joint effort between Skills Future Singapore and Infocom Media Development Authority and strategic stakeholders of the information communication technology industry. So our courses like Certified Ethical Hacker, Computer Hacking and Forensic Investigation have been accepted into their framework as well. Then we have CREST. So CREST is the Council of Registered Ethical Security Testers. It is again a not-for-profit accreditation and certification body. And we can proudly say that EC Council Certified Security Analyst has been considered as a part of it, equivalent to it. And finally, we have GCHQ, Government Communication Headquarters, which is an intelligence and security organization responsible for providing signal intelligence and information assurance in government and armed force in UK. So our courses like Certified Ethical Hacker, EC Council Certified Security Analyst, Certified Chief Information Security Officer has become a very, very approved methodology or approved courses for evaluating the expertise there as well. So these are some of the most popular accreditations that we have. Similarly, our courses are accepted in wide amount of places in multiple ways. So that we are very proud to have it, and we look forward to becoming even more helpful to people all around the world. Now, if we talk about some one of the most popular one that we have is certified ethical hacker. So certified ethical hacker is one of the most prestigious, highly accredited course from multiple accreditations, as we just saw. This is considered to be the ultimate ethical hacking course, which is demanded by employers and reported by peers. If you see anywhere, whenever you talk about ethical hacking, this is the name, the designation you will come across. So CEH we have is a bundle of variety of details about ethical hacking. It talks about the different important terminologies and concepts of cybersecurity. It adds in with it a lot of practicals, and it adds with it a lot of details about how to hack, what is the general process of hacking, what are the different kinds of attacks we can do, and how we can attack different kinds of targets. So it is all bundled together in this particular course. Very comprehensive, very detailed. And you can see here we have with version 10, two types of exams have been launched with it. So we have the CEH version 10 exam, which is a knowledge based exam where you have a multiple choice questions exam, 4 hours, 125 multiple choice questions. So you once you clear that, that proves your knowledge about ethical hacking in cybersecurity. Then we have a CEH practical. So CEH practical is another certification. It does not have any separate training with it, but after you have unconfirmed your knowledge, if you also want to prove that you also have the talent of actually applying that knowledge, so CEH practical will come in handy. It has got 20 challenges that you need to solve, and you need to get at least 70% of them and 6 hours to solve them. And once you have achieved both the designations, you are called as CEH master. You get that designation here. So you can see here are the exam details. So in this normal CEH, we have 2125 questions, 4 hours. The passing criteria is 60 to 85%, depending on how difficult or easy your questions are. That means if your questions are more difficult relatively, so your passing criteria will be more reduced so that it can be made better for you. So everybody is on the equal stage. And for the practical, we have 20 challenges, 6 hours to solve them, and 70% you need to get to clear that. And once you have done both of these, you are given the designation of CEH Master. Now here is an iLab detail here. So you can see when you take CEH with us or any other course for that matter, we can provide you a fully cloud-based lab with us. So you don't have to set up any lab or install any systems or even download any tools. Everything is available here. You can simply subscribe to it and you can get a 6-month subscription directly. You can even extend that subscription if you like. Here, all the machines, like this is a CEH example here. So you can see Kali Linux, Windows, Android, Ubuntu, Server 16, Server 12, Windows 10. So all are different available, and you can simply access them and you can utilize them for working. Okay, at the end of this session, I'll show you a small example which will give you an idea that how these iLabs can be very useful. Then here we talk about what's next. So after doing CH, what next can be done? So there are a lot of options available. So if I talk about the three most popular tracks, so here are the three most popular tracks. So we start with VAPT, vulnerability assessment and penetration testing, where we suggest a certified network defender first, which talks about all the defense mechanisms like firewall, IDS, IPS, SIMs, and so on. So it talks about those. It is a very good way to start and go into security. Then you can go for CEH, or you can directly also go for CEH if you have that knowledge already. Then again, you have choice. You can go for certified threat intelligence analyst. That will give you a lot of information about what are the varieties of threats available and how we can keep our threats updated. Then you can go for EC Council Certified Security Analyst, which is a totally practical kind of course which allows you to understand and get a feel of how real penetration testing is done. Just like CEH has two exams, CEH and CEH practical, here also we have ECSA and ECSA practical. So with ECSA practical, you can showcase your expertise in terms of a more advanced level for hacking and penetration testing. And finally, we have LPT, which is like a license that you get if you clear this, which is the highest level of expertise that you can confirm. You can see here a lot of companies have hired the people who have gone through this track from our company. So you can see Cisco, EY, Infosys, Amazon, HP, Deloitte, Tata. These all have hired people who have been certified in these. Then we have cyber forensics as another very popular track, So you can see here again we have CND, then CEH, then again you can go for CTIE as well, because all these knowledge will be required for a forensic investigator also. Remember, this was one of the coolest job. Then you can go for incident handler. Incident handler is where it helps us identify that if an issue occurs, how do we respond to it. Then comes forensic investigation, where we go into detail of that particular issue and find out who was the culprit and why this happened, and thus be able to help the organization. So a lot of people who have been certified in this track has been employed in Infosys, Bank of America, HSBC, ICICI Bank, Accenture, HDFC, and so on. So this has been again a very popular track. And another very popular track is for software security. So again, once you have done CND, CA, these are like the base for everything, and then you can do, depending on your preference, either with Java or with .NET, or you can do both also if you require. So certified application security engineer. Then after that, you can do ECSA, which will take in to the next level. So that will be applied to software also, and then finally LPT. So this is another path that is extremely popular. A lot of people who have performed and taken these certifications have been employed in Deloitte, EY, Airbus, Tata, Axiata, Kaspersky, and so on. So these are three most popular tracks. Apart from these, so depending on whatever requirement you have, you can go for multiple types of things. You can have any kind of expertise you want depending on your interest. So now, before I go ahead with the questions, that is the last part, let me quickly show you a small example of the iLabs. Just a few seconds. Let me open it up. So this is how the iLabs look like. You can see I have opened CEH version 10, and here you have all the labs, footprinting, scanning. These are all different modules of CEH. So you can see numeration, vulnerability analysis, hacking, threats, malware, sniffing. These are all different attacks and modules of CEH. So you can see for each of them you have a lot of different separate labs. Okay, and if I want to start any of them, for example, right now I've clicked on system hacking. So when I click on it, it shows me, right now it is showing running. If it is not running, then you can put on launch. Okay, so for now I have it started. So let me go ahead and open it. So you can see here, this is for module 6, system hacking. I have opened one of them. So you can see there are multiple exercises in each lab also. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So many different exercises are available, and all the instructions are also available. So even if there is somebody who has forgotten that what was it to do, you can just see the instructions and perform it also. And let me show you one of the examples also, and we can try that. And you can get to understand that how it is very easy to follow these instructions and thus get the understanding of how a hacker thinks. Then you can see all the labs here, all the servers present and all the systems present. Everything is here. You want to access a particular one, you just have to click on it and you can access it. See, I clicked on Windows 8. I'm in Windows 8. I click on Linux. I'm in Linux. So this way it is quite easy, and you can have the help where you can change the look and feel of this particular one also. You can change like this also. See, there's a lot of options. Okay, so this way also you can see. Then here we have the option of saving the lab also. So you can save 5 labs together, generally for a week or so. Then we have a lot of options for different key combinations. You can type and paste username password from here. There is a virtual keyboard available. You can restart or change the fit of the machine. You can reconnect as required. So there's a lot of options, and you really don't need anything external. This is totally on cloud. You can simply log in with the credentials and you can access these very easily. So let me try doing one of these exercises and show you a short example. So you can see here, we have this exploiting client-side vulnerabilities and establishing a VNC session. So suppose now I am a new person. I have no idea about ethical hacking or what is pen testing or anything. So what I can do, I can just read the scenario and I will get to know what these technologies mean. So right now I have got a target and I'm going to use Kali Linux, a very popular tool called as Metasploit, and I'm going to attack that and get an access to that machine. That is my agenda right now. You can read through it and you will get to know the similar details. So even that, how you have to, which machine you have to go for, that also is given here. So you can directly click on here. Right now I'm already in the machine, so I don't need to do that. Then it has given you space bar. You can press space bar, or you can simply drag from bottom to top also. So you can see here we have root. So you can see username. If it is not given, you have to select that. That also they have given. Then you can put on password. So I'm putting the password to. Okay, so now it will open up. So something I might have tried some time ago. Let me stop this. Maybe I've done this some time ago, right? So for now, let me stop and try to get it again. So this is some part I am trying. You can see MSF Venom. MSF Venom is a tool here which I can utilize. So MSF Venom is a tool which will allow me to create a custom, you will see, kind of a malicious software, then send it to that machine, and then I can use that to connect to that machine. So let me try creating one. So I'm going to create MSF Venom. -p is for putting the particular kind of malware that I want to create. This is an built-in malware that I'm using. Windows Metapreter, right, reverse PC. So you can see I've, oh, I'm sorry, I clicked on it. I didn't have to press enter. So you can see I have done this. Now what I'm going to do, I am going to put which platform I am going to target. So my target is Windows. So I am putting Windows. Then which architecture? So my target has x86. So I'm going to prove that. Then which format? So I am putting -f for format. In exe is what I want. Then lhost is for the attacker machine. So lhost is, my attacker machine is Kali. So I'm putting Kali's IP address. Okay, then which port? So I can put any port from this machine. So I'm putting the one they are requesting. Let me put maybe some other also you can put. So you can put this one also. Let's choose another one. Right. So we can have this, and then -o, and output is in this file. So let me go here. So I'm going to put output root desktop, and here we have test.exe. Let's name it something more interesting. Names you can change, malware.exe, just to make it more interesting. Okay, so I have pressed enter. Now let's give it a few seconds and it will work out. So you can see it has been created. Now I can actually see this particular malware being used here. You can see it on the screen. The malware is present there. Now what I'm going to do is I want to share this malware. Okay. Now in order to share this malware, there are multiple ways. In real time, you can share it with a pen drive, or you can share it with, let's say, a message or an email, or you can share it with different ways are there actually to share it. So right now what I'm going to do is I am going to ensure that we share this with the help of web methodology. So I'm going to host web here, Apache service here, and then I'm going to share it with that. Okay, so let's do that. So you can see malware.exe is here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to share it. So you can see they also request the same. So for that, what I'm going to do, I am going to create a new directory. So mkdir is for creating a new directory. I'm going to do that in the web directory. So default web directory is var / then var, the www, then html. Okay, so in html, I'm going to create a directory share. So it is done. Now it is created. Now I'm going to change the permissions of that. So you can see I'm changing permissions. Chmod is for changing the permissions. 755 means all permissions to root, and read and execute permissions to all other kind of users. Okay, then we can put in the particular folder name so that everybody can access. Okay, we have got. Then we are going to change the ownership so everybody can access again. So because I want people to be able to access, isn't it? So I'm going to give it ownership for accessing. So to the same folder, right? I've given ownership also. Now I'm going to copy this malware to that particular, or rather move this malware there. So you can see root desktop malware, and I'm moving it to the same directory var www html share. Now I can see it has been moved. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to shift to Windows 10 and I'm going to see what we can find there. Okay, so let's go ahead. There should be a link for Windows 10 here. Okay, wait, I have not started the service also. It is not started by default. So service Apache to start. So I've started the service. Okay, if I want to check if it is running or not, I can check the status also. Yeah, it is running. Right. So it is fine. Now let's go ahead and start the listening service also here. So I'm going to go there, start the listening service, so that when the particular malware goes there, I can collect that particular session that will be created. Okay, so let's do that. It takes a few seconds for Metasploit to start always. So you can see my Metasploit is ready now. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to start a listening service. So there is a module here, multi-handler, which can access any kind of session that come across. Now I'm going to give the same details that I gave while creating the particular malware. So you can see the -p was this. So I'm going to put what I put in -p. That was a type of malware I'm creating. So I created this. Then I want to put the attacker details. So the same details that I put, same I'm going to add here also. And similarly, I can try to put on, I use 666, remember? So I'm going to change that. And then I'm going to click on run. Okay, now it has started. Now let me go to another machine. I think Windows 10. You can see here we have Windows 10. I can click on it directly from here. I don't need to go through other ways also. So you can see Windows 10 is here. Now I can open it and it will come up, and then I can put the password. So I can type the password like given here, or what I can simply do, or even more simply do, is I can simply click on the password field and click on this T button. So it will type it there. See, just typed, and I can click on this. This again makes my life a bit more easier. So let's go ahead, and you can see it is ready. Right. So let me go to the Chrome and try to access that particular there. So I'm accessing Chrome now. Yes, so Chrome is here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to access that. So you can see I can access that. You can see malware.exe. Let me click on it. Desktop, let me download it. And here it is. And then you can see I have just shared that malware. Now I'm executing it. And let's see what happens at Kali. So you can see a Metapreter session has opened. That means I have got access. Now if I write something, for example, sysinfo, that is a command here, you can see here, I'm in that machine, Windows 10. So now from here, I can do whatever I want with that machine. This is the idea. Now what I'm going to do, the idea was to get a VNC session. So I'm going to get a VNC session. Let's give it a few seconds. And you will see it will do a small kind of magic. And yes, you can see this looks just like Windows 10. See, isn't it? So whatever I do in Windows 10, that can be seen there. Suppose I create a file here. So let's say create a file. So now you can see that there also. You can see. Suppose I write something in that file. Anything. So you can see there that also there. So in real time, I'm able to see what the person is doing without him knowing. So this is the small example. There's a lot of commands we used here. This you will understand better in case you do the course. So this way you can do a lot of different kinds of things, and there's a lot of variety of options available. And this way you can utilize these labs. These labs are very easy to use and very useful for practicing as well. You can try multiple things in there and give you wonderful practice. So this was a small example of iLabs. So now the session is open for questions. Any questions that you might have, please let me know. I'll be happy to answer all of them for you. So you can see. Any questions, anyone? Please let me know.